Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, I hope you all had a great Christmas, less eventful than ours. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a video this week, but there's been so much news and obviously plenty to report about everything that happened with YouTube. So I'm going to run through all the macro headlines and all the crypto headlines like normal. We do welcome 600 new subscribers this week, so thanks for joining us on this journey, and plenty of you loving the top 10 podcasts and interviews. Be sure to check them out over your summer break. So let's get into that local news. Before we do, I just want to mention that I will be doing a longer format year in review and look ahead, similar to what we did last year. Some predictions we got very right and others we got wrong. We're going to talk about all that. I'm going to break it up into two episodes, one about the macro and the finance, as well as one specifically about crypto and specific altcoin projects and whatnot as well. So that's probably the only two videos that I'll be doing this week as well. We're trying to have a bit more time off. Okay, so into the local news, where unfortunately falls in lawn did get called off today due to that extreme heat and mounting bushfire dangers. So hopefully not too many of you were affected. I know Falls Festival down in Tassie is still going ahead, but it's meant to be 40 degrees, and I also think there's a lot of fire danger around the country with this hot weather continuing. So make sure to stay safe out there, guys. First home buyers, as of next week, are going to be qualifying for this 5% down loan. But unfortunately, this is going to come with a lot of added interest. So you've still got to pay off that loan. And remember how much the interest payments, you just got to eat away at them, and they eat away at that capital of yours as well. So something to be aware of. I don't think that this is overall actually a positive at all. I think it's just another thing that's going to push up house prices, and 90% of people that don't qualify for this loan, that's just first home buyers, it's only making housing more expensive. Okay, so we've got news this week from ABC that the owners are going to be footing the costs for this combustible cladding removal. So, all the builders, the regulators, who's to blame, who's going to pay for this? Well, it's actually the owners. And all the time people stretch themselves in their budgets, and there's no way that they're going to be able to honestly afford to do this and coordinate it with everyone else in their apartment and whatnot. Another mess for those investors, unfortunately, affected by those building standards. Now, Christmas sales are looking like they are going to be the worst since the global financial crisis. Again, we keep saying all these signs around the globe, what's going on. There has been a bit of an uptick in online sales, but I really think that there is something afoot, as you guys know, with everything we've been talking about. Now, in terms of all the companies on the ASX, the Australian stock market, this was a great piece written by Christopher Joy about the rise of zombie companies. So there's a few definitions, but basically companies that wouldn't be able to survive unless interest rates were this low. And that's now 15% of companies in the Australian stock market. We know it's a lot more in the US. So if you're a company that doesn't even make money, you'd otherwise go broke. That's part of the healthy business cycle. But obviously central banks are kicking that can down the road, trying to play masters of the universe. And I think this is all just going to come home to roost and really hurt them, because all that money and investors that would have been doing more productive things just stuck in these dead-end jobs, and the companies go into more and more debt to just pay wages and pay shareholders, and it doesn't make sense. All right, so over to the US, and this was an interesting piece that got shared about the US Department of Defense urging all their personnel and staff to avoid genetic testing because there's mass surveillance out there and the ability to track individuals without their awareness. Now, obviously, a project that I covered was Project Shivam. I'm having them on the channel again soon. They've been very busy. They've got a few partnerships coming up and whatnot, but this is what they were trying to avoid. They're trying to protect your personal data and build that database using blockchain. But we'll get into all that in that interview. But really interesting, the Department of Defense is saying that some of these other companies that are centralized, they're just using your data and selling it, and it's all been tracked and surveilled. Is social media the new tobacco? I definitely think that is a trend that is going to be spoken about a lot in 2020 and beyond. The overuse of Facebook and what these things are good and bad for, the harm it's doing to the younger individuals and whatnot. But I think we will look back on a lot of things we do in the modern era and say, well, is it like smoking? What were we thinking? Now, as the Fed have been cutting interest rates again after that hiking cycle, credit card rates are still at record all-time highs. So I'm not sure how the US consumer is actually still in okay shape compared to other countries around the world, especially Australia, when credit card debt is at 17%, even though they're dropping those interest rates back down towards zero. Now, an interesting piece out of Sweden this week. ending their negative interest rate policy. So they actually believe that it's warped their economy. Very few people speak as openly about this, but they're trying to get out of that negative interest rate zone. And we're waiting to see now if they do a backflip and they're forced to go back down that path, or if they can actually even, it's crazy to be saying this, can their economy survive with zero interest rate policy after it has been negative? And we know that negative yielding bonds have decreased in their amount as well, but I'm going to talk about all that in our big year look ahead episode. Now, auto lenders have verified that have only verified the income of 7% of all their loans in the past 2 or 3 years. So this is a little bit like the housing market all over again, where it's just this subprime. You don't even check if people have a job and you're just giving them a car loan. And we've seen how huge that has grown, and the percent of delinquent loans, that is really growing now up towards 8% of people that aren't making the payments on their cars. So another bubble, we've got, the student debt bubble, auto loans, as well as consumer debt in places like Australia. It's really nuts how we're so reliant on just blowing another debt bubble to try and keep the economy ticking along. Now, at the same time, we've got that demographic time bomb with all the baby boomers retiring, and Japan's birth rate has now dropped to the lowest level since 1874, well over 100 years, and their deaths have also hit the highest number since World War II. So we're just seeing this declining population, and everything we do on this planet is based around growth, continually growing, and that just doesn't work when you have a finite planet and resources. Now, the Baltic Dry Index, which measures, shipping movements around the world, now that's tumbled to the lowest level since 2008 during the financial crisis, and it's these tariffs. This is what's really slowing everyone down, despite the fact we're being told that the trade deal has been struck. Phase zero, it's just getting translated into Chinese, I think was Donald Trump's latest tweet. Now, despite all this, stock markets are at record highs, and that's where I actually think Australian stock markets could go if we start to print money. But have a look at this chart. This is a monthly chart of the NASDAQ, the tech stocks. And it's insane to think that they've gone from around 1,000, around the time of the GFC, and then when that bottomed in 2009, up to ticking over 9,000 this week. Absolutely insane growth. This is parabolic. If this was an altcoin, this was similar to that Matic chart we're looking at the other day, where you say, well, this is going to have a correction. I don't know if the fundamentals are there to back it up. And I think the fundamentals of the stock market have built off these days. It's low interest rates and all this money printing. I don't think you can argue that, the stock market is 10 times bigger than it was 10 years ago, 10 times greater, 10 times more money being made, and, job prosperity and all that. It's just not reality. And unfortunately, the truth about inflation is one of the reasons why the stock market is at record highs. So I know plenty of you checked out that episode, but please watch it again if you haven't, because what we're seeing is stock market at record highs, even in places like Venezuela and Argentina. So it doesn't really matter what number is on the screen of your stock market if you've got this high inflation. And in the US, it's obviously not hyperinflation, but it's certainly happening to a lesser degree. The value of the underlying dollar is getting less and less, and that's why all these stock markets around the world are at record highs. Now, the World Bank has come out and warned of this wave of debt that could unleash a huge historic crisis and crush the global economy. We've beaten that drum to death, as a lot of channels have, but it's these big reputable companies and institutions that are warning about something approaching, which is scaring a lot of people. If we have a look at the number of job losses, we know that European banks have had the highest number of job cuts there. So Deutsche Bank in particular leading the way, 18,000 job cuts. So it's getting so competitive in the world of finance and payments, and that's where there's this massive overlap with blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. It's just being so disruptive. Now, in terms of Europe, who have had the worst run with these banks, we see things like this. Germans are queuing outside their stores to buy gold because on January 1st, the amount of gold that you're allowed to buy anonymously drops from 10,000 euros down to 2,000. So similar to the cash bans we've got going on in places like Australia and whatnot, every little bit of freedom you have or right to own gold and not be tracked and not know who owns it, that's all going out the window. So 2 years ago, it was 15,000 euros. You could buy gold and they don't really care who you are. But now, everything that you do, people just want to monitor it. And this is just total overreach of power. Now, I put out on Twitter and a few different groups. I put these in gold and silver groups, in crypto groups, try and get a feel for the sentiment and what everyone's feelings are. So 20 years from now, I'm thinking about maybe giving Louis something that he's not allowed to open for his 21st birthday. So Bitcoin, obviously we've got a massive Bitcoin crypto audience, but yeah, silver faring fairly well there, and Ethereum down the bottom. Now Ethereum's got that big upgrade and a few headwinds, but interesting mix there. And the stats are actually pretty close to the hard asset portfolio that I'm looking to build, and as my copy trader portfolio on eToro, which I know plenty of you are interested in as well. In terms of the individual stocks, we're coming out with our next premium report about silver stocks. I want to do a report all about the best ETFs because these days you can get access to those very easily through that partnership we've got with eToro. And this is the last week that we will be giving away $100 of Bitcoin to anyone that signs up for eToro. Once you make those trades, verify your account and everything, you can also qualify the Australians for the 10% deposit bonus as well. Now, with all of that, you can roll that up in your self-managed super if you are able to take control of your own wealth. So they've got that free consultation. Take advantage of that, guys. We've got so many great testimonials, and hundreds of you have used Mike, and you're loving this system now as well. So gold and silver, we're continuing to hear that a lot of people are looking to protect their capital and manage their own wealth. Now, in terms of mining and crypto mining, we've seen that Canaan, that's a competitor to Bitmain, have come out with their 5 nanometer chip. So they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in terms of the ASICs that are mining Bitcoin. That space is going to get more competitive going forward, but we didn't think that you could actually go much lower than a 7 nanometer chip because we're physically pushing the limits of how close we can put microprocessors together without the physics of the atoms actually affecting each other. So I know I absolutely love that stuff, and we might do a full episode on that in our new mining special. So this was a pretty popular episode in the end with you guys, and let us know what you want covered in terms of those mining topics. And if you haven't checked out our monthly mining update, our first episode was a couple of weeks ago. Now, over to Japan, where a financial services firm have invested in Huobi, Japan. Now, this is a theme we're going to see continue. Global on-ramps. All these countries, whether it's Binance or Huobi, we're seeing really aggressive expansion into all these countries, and that's very, very different to the last bull market. So whenever it takes off, there's so many ways for people to get into crypto. Now, Rakuten customers can use their loyalty points to buy crypto. These guys are a massive company in Japan, a retail giant, and I've heard all throughout Southeast Asia there's these loyalty points crypto companies coming out. Again, it's just really in that mainstream narrative now, the fact that crypto, I can use my points to do that. I can buy some Bitcoin. Huobi also expanding to Indonesia, another on-ramp from the Indonesian rupiah into Tether and into crypto. It's just amazing to watch this unfold. I don't think it's really been spoken about. We've got Binance expanding trading pairs into the Turkish lira. Binance this week coming out 4 different cryptos you can buy with Visa debit and credit cards. When the floodgates open, they are really going to open. I think it's actually going to be a bigger bubble than last time because of the ease that retail investors can get into the market. Now, in terms of Uzbekistan and some other countries, they're going to put up these brick walls and say, no, our citizens can't buy crypto. But we know how easy it is to circumvent that with VPNs or peer-to-peer crypto trading. So it's this massive headache for regulators. And we've seen them push back in Venezuela and Argentina, and yet we continue to set these record volumes. Now, because of hyperinflation, it's slightly misleading because of the decreasing value of their local currencies. But either way, it is parabolic, the amount of money that is going in to Bitcoin and crypto from all these different countries. South Korea forming a task force for central bank digital currency research. They don't want to be outdone by their neighbors throughout Asia there as well. We've got the Bahamas central bank saying that they're going to be piloting their digital currency this week, as well as Russia now testing out these pegged stablecoins, the Russian central bank. So I think the US are very quickly being left behind. We know that China have gone all in on this, saying that their digital yuan is going to be different from Bitcoin. And I think that's a good thing that they're highlighting that, because we want people to recognize that all these different stablecoins, they're just pegged to local fiat currencies that are going to be printed into oblivion. We need people to understand that Bitcoin is so much more scarce relative to every other currency out there on the planet, and that's what's going to drive that market cap. Now, at the same time, Chinese regulators are coming out and saying that, there's been a bit of a resurgence in crypto since we went all in on blockchain and whatnot, and they're issuing a new warning. And we're going to see this balance back and forward. Crypto's, don't speculate. Crypto's bad, but I really think that this is more of a warning about all these scams. So Canada coming out this week and talking about the double taxation. This is something that we actually had in Australia. We had to fight really hard to get rid of that. So I hope they can scrap that double taxation in Canada. But in terms of those scams and Ponzi schemes, we know that Plus Token was out of control in terms of how big it had grown. And I'd been warning about Cloud Token. Now, finally, they've been busted by Chinese police. I know there's people that are going to watch this video and say that, oh no, this was just a rumor. Though I think the rumor going around that Cloud Token have come out and said that, oh no, these people were in trouble for moving garbage or something. Anyway, that to me is an absolute load of rubbish itself. This is another Ponzi scheme. They're going to be here every year, guys. Just avoid them. Another fear people had about dumping of tokens was Craig Wright. Apparently that that trust fund, he gets the keys to that in January, but he's coming out and saying that no, he actually doesn't have the private keys. He's not going to be getting access to that month, but he's still saying that Bitcoin is dead. Okay, so let's get into the big story this week, and this was all about YouTube. So what happened was on Christmas Day, I logged in and saw a warning that I had 50 videos more taken down, and I had no idea what I'd done wrong. And then we started to see that this was affecting lots of people. Now, a few hours later, after Christmas lunch, I logged back in to see what was going on, and I had a second strike and 100 videos removed. And by that, we had 250 videos removed. And all it says is that, you've created these videos which have broken this rule. I think it was inappropriate content or whatnot, but you don't get an email, even so much as an email from them. This was really, really scary. So luckily, Twitter really rallied around our cause, and this tweet got nearly 7,000 likes and really went quite viral. So we had stories from BBC, as you just saw, all the way through all the big crypto news sites. So it really was awesome to see the crypto community rally around us and everyone that was affected. It is scary. YouTube is the backbone of our business for particularly driving new membership to our premium services and whatnot. Now, obviously, we want to look to expand that and diversify, but still not having any answers is a little bit scary, and we do everything by the book. So if this ever happens again, or the other day, a lot of people weren't aware that all our content gets posted to about a dozen decentralized platforms, the most widely used of which is LBRY. So you just go to lbry.tv and you can just search Nuggets News, just like you would with YouTube. All our video, all our content goes there as well, guys. So please support these decentralized platforms. And yeah, the amount of you that reached out to see if you could help in any way, it was really moving. So thank you so much. We have built a really tight-knit community, and unfortunately, YouTube is still the best way to reach a new audience for us. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Now, Omar, a great friend of mine, coming out, and also a channel that was affected by YouTube, but censorship has extended over to the App Store this week, where they've actually censored the MetaMask extension and Coinbase and all the different dApp browsers. So most of you will know MetaMask, the extension that you can interact with all the different Ethereum apps on, but blocking that, I'm not sure what's going on. I think basically Apple and Google, they are seeing that these dApps are now coming competition for their apps, their app stores. So I'm not sure what's going on, but Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong coming out here and saying that, yeah, it's really unfortunate to see. They're not really sure what to do. Now, if you've already got this installed, or if you know how to install apps manually and extensions manually, you can actually get around that. So it's just the Google store that the MetaMask app has been removed from at this stage. All right, so next up we've got Amanda Johnson, who's one of the very, very early adopters of cryptocurrency. She had a great YouTube channel coming out to talk about the merger and acquisition, like we've seen in the gold and silver market during the bottom of the cycle. Are these currencies that are all competing for payments, like Bitcoin Cash and Dash, should they merge Bitcoin Dash? Now, I know this got a lot of people talking. I'm not sure this is likely, but we are seeing that really hot up, and Bitcoin capture market share in terms of that digital gold store of value, a lot of other aspects. But in terms of payments, competition is going to be really hot in 2020 and beyond. So what do you think, guys? Should Bitcoin Cash and Dash merge? In terms of those payments, Amisego is another one that's trying to really shake things up throughout Southeast Asia, and it's been a long time coming. This one has really been behind their roadmap, and finally we've got mainnet, the first transaction taking place. That plasma scaling solution that is going to help Ethereum is finally here. Well done to Amisego. Another chain that I've been really supportive of and I love is Enigma. Their privacy, they've actually launched that testnet now. This is going to allow for private smart contracts for all these businesses, and they've got some massive businesses and corporations that are looking forward to using it. I think ENG, that token, is going to be one of the best in 2020 as well. Tornado Cash, probably a bit of a competitor there. They've expanded the amount of private Ethereum as well as added some other coins. So DAI and some other stable coins there. You can now put these in, watch the Tornado Cash tutorial I did if you haven't already, mix your coins up, make those anonymous now to the tune of 100 ETH, which is currently over $10,000. So really cool that you can make those Ethereum private. Vitalik Buterin coming out this week and having this sped up transition that he's proposing from ETH 1 to ETH 2.0. This is all to do with how the new beacon chain is going to interact with the old Ethereum chain. I've done a video, so search Ethereum 2.0 Nuggets News if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about and how this transition is going to take place, because Ethereum does have another hard fork on January 1st. So you guys don't have to do anything. Exchanges will do the work for you here, but on January 1st, I really hope that there's not too many of those devs and nodes that are away partying on New Year's Eve and everyone does successfully upgrade another massive update for the Ethereum network. Now, I think it's getting really competitive, and Ethereum's had their headwinds for sure, but I think a lot of these other blockchains that had big promises have fallen behind, and Hedera Hashgraphs have actually asked their investors to wait even longer to unlock their tokens because prices are already down. You know, it's been absolutely beaten up ever since it listed at around 12 cents. It's down to 2 cents. So these guys that were very early investors, finally they think they get to unlock their tokens, but they're down 90%. They don't want to crest the token price, and they just haven't got businesses using their token, even if they are experimenting with their blockchain. So yes, I know these things take time. It's that 3 to 5 year window that's now dawning on all these blockchains. Think about how many there are. Algorand, Cardano's out there now, Ethereum Classic. There's just so much competition for trying to get businesses to build on your blockchain. A lot of Me Too projects. Now, Ethereum, one thing that they can do to drop their inflation rate lower than Bitcoin and become more of a money would be to reduce the new Ethereum block reward, particularly as we phase away from proof of work mining to proof of stake. So this actually passed with flying colors. Basically, everyone loves it when you make your asset more scarce. So will we reduce the amount of new ETH per block to 1 Ethereum? I think that would be really bullish for Ethereum, and that whole is Ethereum money argument as well. Now, this week we actually saw the publicly stated amount of Bitcoin that's locked in Ethereum as wrapped Bitcoin past the amount of Bitcoin that's publicly locked in the Lightning Network. Now, obviously, people are saying that a lot of the Bitcoin that's in Lightning Network is private. We don't know exactly how much is in there, but yes, I don't think anyone can argue that the amount of apps and development, DeFi, wrapped Bitcoin, all this stuff that's happening on Ethereum has exploded throughout the year. And Anthony did a 50-part thread with everything that's happened on Ethereum this year. So it's kind of funny when people say, oh, ETH's dead, guys. Head over and give him a follow and read that 50-part thread, everything that's happened. Now, another fantastic project I wanted to share with you here was Sets. So these are tokens, ERC20 tokens that you can buy. And what they do is actually automatically trade certain strategies. So RSI crossovers, moving averages, volatility. And the other day, this was a beautiful picture here. You can see that on every time frame from the 1 day all the way through to 1 year, every single one of these tokens is outperforming if you had just held Ethereum. So it's up in price. So, they only buy when the moving averages are going up, for example, and then they sell if the moving averages are going down. So this does it all automatically for you. I'll cover this in more in depth. I want to have the guys from Sets Protocol on the channel, but this was just so awesome to see that literally every token they've got is performing really, really well. Now, I did an update for members on December 17th. That is 2 weeks ago now. Bitcoin was trading at 6,800. Everyone was bearish. The world felt like it was, ending with everyone starting to call for $1,000, $3,000 Bitcoin. And this was blue line that I posted and spoke about, because the Adam and Eve pattern, this was very similar. It reminded me of that fractal of the start of the year when nobody was expecting Bitcoin to bottom. These ingredients with people away over Christmas and summer holidays, people not really watching the charts, and this is playing out really nicely so far. So I hope we can get some follow through. This major downtrend line is going to be that first resistance. We'll have a look at the charts in just a second. But great to see a lot of members making some good money and but going against that negative sentiment, which was just everywhere a week or two ago. So guys, just a reminder, this is the last week you can take advantage of that $100 free Bitcoin when you sign up to eToro. Head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. There will be a link in the description below. So a few days left. That's been wildly popular to get exposure to the stocks ETFs. I'm going to continue to make tutorials about how to use this, because it is just such a great way to get access to those ETFs and products which you can't easily get access to in Australia. Alrighty, so over to the charts, and Bitcoin is still in this falling wedge pattern. I do have to renew my premium TradingView subscription by the look of it. Maybe a Christmas present for myself there. But this is the range we're looking to break now. So zooming in, if we can break this downtrend, which is coming into play at around 7,800, that's really, really bullish after we've had this long falling wedge since all the way back in June. It's been 6 months. It's been so painful. I know view counts are down, membership to premium services. Everyone loses interest, but this is the time when you should be getting interested and buying. So that weekly chart looks really, really pretty there with that falling little wedge, and we touched the bottom of that Bollinger Band. I did a really detailed analysis on everything that was happening at the time about how these things tend to mean revert back to the middle of that Bollinger Band as well there. So look, Bitcoin dominance, the other thing I'm watching, the Ethereum Bitcoin pair, we also like to keep it on to get a feel for how alts are going to do. But let's talk about price action more when I do my updated 4-year cycle and my halving video, which I know you guys are really looking forward to. So guys, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au for more information on anything we do. I hope you all have an awesome New Year's Eve. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, get your friends and family involved, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.